Alrighty, beautiful and strong people, Coach Allen here, and as you can see, I am shining very bright because it's very early in the morning, and the lights are actually, reflecting on me so much. So I'll just be your shining star today. So today, in this week's training, we're going to talk about adapting training with travel time. Because I've certainly been in this situation this year in which I had some, travel time and I had to work around it so I can still, build momentum. And whenever you're in a situation which you have to travel, no matter the circumstances, it's still a salvageable situation. Okay, so you don't need to despair. We can still gain momentum. We just have to do the best we can with whatever we have. Okay, and I've certainly had a couple of clients that were in the situation in which they had to travel, an unexpected travel to Dubai, to wherever their company or wherever their situation is for travels. So I kind of wanted to take the time and develop a framework which is going to be very helpful to conceptualize a couple of ways in which you can work around it so you can still build momentum. Okay, so the first consideration that we should be taking under account is the travel time itself. Is it going to be for a few days? Is it going to be for 1 week? Is it going to be for 2 weeks, or a month, or even more than a month? Do we have access to equipment? Is it a powerlifting gym? Is it a commercial gym? Is it a hotel gym? Or just none at all? Okay. And within which period of the block the travel appears? Okay, so is it towards the end of the block and we're treating that travel time as deload? Or is it within the start of the block and we kind of have to repeat it? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of a baseline program and how we can kind of work around it based on the travel time, okay, and the circumstances in which we find ourselves. So let's say, day one is a primary squat with a triple at 87%, with, 3 sets of 4 at 77%, some RDLs, Bulgarian split squats, and Copenhagen's. Day two is your primary bench with the same layout, just a little bit more volume towards the back downs, dumbbell incline, seated row, tricep push downs. On day three, we have deadlifts with some more intensity in there. So a double at 90%, three sets of 3 at 80%, post squat, good mornings, cable wood chops. Okay, some rotation core work in there. For day four, close grip bench press on volume, dips, lat pull downs, and skull crushers. Okay, so this is looking a lot like a final week to a penultimate week of a block, if you're going on a linear progression. So, I have to make this point on how we visualize the context. This is a linear progression model. Okay, so based on the linear progression model, what we can actually do to adapt training based on travel time. Okay, so let's presume we have travel time, just for a few days. Okay, we can compress workouts together before or after. So we can compress workouts together before or after based on when you leave. Okay, so if you're leaving, for example, early in the week, you would probably compress things down upon your return. If you're going to leave, let's say, early in the week, you would do that towards the end of the week. Okay, so it would look something like this, prioritizing the main movements. You would have your squat and bench, primary squat and bench together, with a variation for deadlifts and some back work. On day two, you would take your deadlifts, your secondary squat, close grip bench press, secondary bench, and some tricep push downs. Okay, would be ideal if we had something like 1 day rest in between them, just so when you're getting into your deadlifts on day two, you're not feeling sore from the squats and RDLs. If not, we have to condense them together. There is another way around it. You would have on day one all your primary work, so squat, bench, deadlift, maybe dropping a little bit of volume. And on day two, you would prioritize some more, let's say, accessories. You do your close grip bench press and just have a couple of accessories in there. Now, if the travel time is within 1 week, if you'd have no access to a gym, you would pretty much repeat the week that you would normally travel in, but maybe with a little bit of a drop. Okay, and you would especially repeat that if it is within week 1 or 2 of a block. Okay, so you don't need to drop if it's early in a block. If it's week 1, just take your time, okay, and get back into it. You don't need to drop too much. You can just build momentum off of that, okay? Because you would normally come back from, a last week, a ultimate week, so that's, acting as a deload. So even though the first week, maybe dropping a little bit of volume might be a good idea, you still have the opportunity to build up momentum. But if you are within, that travel time is within like week 3 or week 4 of a block, you'd quite literally take the previous week and repeat it. Okay, so it will look something like this. Instead of an 87%, you would have, an 82%. So that's a 5% drop. On the deadlifts, instead of 90%, you would have an 85%. Okay, you would taper some of the volume on the main movements, and you would also taper some of the volume on the variations and on the accessories. Okay, and that should still get you going into a really good momentum to continue. Okay, if you'd have access to a hotel gym, of course, no hotel gym has barbell, rack, or platform unless it's a very respectable sports hotel gym. We would substitute the movements to something we can do. Okay, and upon repeat, we'd repeat the week if it is week 1 or week 2 of a block. So the same structure, or we would just drop a little bit if it was week 3 or week 4 of a block. Okay, so just an example. Instead of squats, we would have heel elevated goblet squats, and with a pause on day 3. Instead of bench, we would have some dumbbell bench press with some neutral grip dumbbell bench press, just to kind of substitute for the close grip bench press. We would have, instead of RDLs and instead of deadlifts, we would have dumbbell RDLs, because we're assuming we only have like dumbbells in there. A little bit heavier on day 3 and a little bit lighter with more repetitions on day 1. Okay, and you would have your dumbbell incline. You would substitute your dips with some dumbbell floor press. You would still have your Bulgarian split squats, Copenhagen's. Instead of doing seated row, you do one arm dumbbell row, dumbbell pullover instead of lat pull downs. Okay, so that's the kind of substitute you can actually make. However, if the travel time is over 1 week, so it's going to be something like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you had no access to a gym, you'd kind of have to repeat the block. And it would be a wise decision, if you're not doing anything at all, to potentially introduce an intro week. So you would have your week 1, but you would drop like 2%, 3%, 5% of your volume and intensity from week 1, so you can really ease into the new block. Okay, so it's really going to act as an activation for your next for your block, which you're pretty much going to repeat. Okay, so instead of 87%, it's going to be a 70%. Instead of 90%, it would be 75%. Okay, accessories and variations taper down. If you'd have access to a hotel gym, you do exactly the same, like in 1 week. But you may potentially have the opportunity to just repeat the block, without necessarily needing an intro week. Because if you have like 2 weeks of just hotel gym work and, you're not sandbagging the work, I mean, you're, making the best out of the equipment that you have, you still have, some work in there. Your body has not been sedentary, has not been, inactive from a perspective of doing those movements. So it would be an easier transition to get straight into, week one of your block. You have an easy time after that to actually build momentum again. And if we have a travel time over 1 month, well, my friend, you kind of need to start from scratch. You detrain quite considerably, and you need to start to build back momentum. So you take 3 days instead of 4 days. You have like one squat session, one deadlift session, one bench session, and you would just look to get back in the groove with the movements and the tolerance to volume, so eventually you can actually get back to a structure that you've been before actually leaving for travels. So that's the framework. That's one way around it, how you can work with it. As you can see, everything can be salvageable. It's important to take under consideration the fact that we have to do our best with whatever we have. Okay, so we don't need to panic if we know that, hey, we have a competition within 16 weeks and we have like 2 weeks travel time. It is what it is. We have a hotel gym. Awesome. We're going to knock it. We have commercial gym. Not the best equipment, but awesome. We can get some really quality work in there. If you have no access, no access to a gym at all, you just quite literally don't have the time, that's okay. We're going to work around it. You're still going to be in a good spot. It's just 2 weeks is not the end of the world. So I hope this is helpful. If you guys have any questions in regard to this training, just shoot me a comment and I'm going to get back at you. Have a good one.